I'm Catherine Thomason, and I'm doing this because I think we can find the answers. I really do. We're all going to have to work doubly hard and use these health stories that Wendy just told you that apply to all those white, overweight policymakers, or any policymakers, the examples that she showed you, that tell people that it's going to impact them. It's not now just going to impact their children. It's going to impact them. So what I'd like to cover is that the solutions are also the solutions for our health problems as well. So there's benefits to clean renewables, energy efficiency, and I'm going to go over one aspect of the solution that I'd like you to walk out of here today with, and that's the EPA Clean Power Plan and what we can do about that to make it better, and also what you can do so that you feel empowered to take action. So let me ask you all, what's the cheapest energy out there?
Coal.
Coal, someone said? Other ideas?
The sun. Wind.
Solar, wind,
Water. Efficiency.
efficiency, bingo. Energy efficiency is the cheapest form of reducing our carbon footprint. It does cost money. We have to pay for upgrades. We're not talking about just turning off the lights, which of course our parents all told us to do. We're talking about truly reducing how much electricity we need because we can be more efficient. So it's about 2.5 to 2.8 cents per kilowatt hour. Make sure my numbers are right. All right. So there's a study put out by the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project that stated we can invest $17 billion from now until 2020. We will save $37.1 billion, both in health benefits as well as in reduced energy costs if we make this investment. So it's a net benefit of $20 billion. How many people read Paul Krugman's article today in the New York Times about how the solutions aren't going to wreck the economy? Bravo. It's not. There are many wonderful solutions. So what did they look at? They looked at the best practices. So one of the best practices is already in place in many places, and that's actually providing low-income homes and apartments with weatherization and efficiency upgrades. Another is multifamily retrofits. So this glowing picture of the building back here shows where the energy is seeping out of the building, whether it's cooling or heating. And this worker over here, which we're going to have so many new jobs from doing this kind of work. Putting in insulation to prevent all the seepage of electricity, heating and cooling that are going right out the window and the walls. So there are many examples of best practices. There's about 10 of them. We can go over some of them in the question and answer period if you'd like. But of course there's commercial and industrial. There's actually more potential savings on the commercial and industrial side, and actually there's been more action taken on that side as well. One of the best practices again is to pass better codes. The better codes teach the home builders and the construction industry with training programs on how to make a better structure that's more energy efficient right from the beginning. And teaches home buyers that they want to look for an energy efficient building because it's going to cost them less money. And there are a whole variety of others. Now, why aren't these being done? Why do you think? Yeah.
High money on the front end.
High money on the front end, right. Why else?
It's not sexy.
It's not sexy, absolutely. Who likes putting insulation in? Not me. I'd rather have solar panels on my roof.
The utility companies think they'll lose.
The utility companies profit by selling more electricity. Okay, so the states that have decoupled the profits and the outcome for the utility company from how much electricity they're producing and instead awarding them for reaching targets that produce more energy efficiency. Those are the places they're going to have more energy efficiency. It only makes sense. A lot of these programs currently are financed through utility fees. Michigan has instituted a wonderful program that's nearly put in 10% energy efficiency by next year through assessing a 3% increase in utility. Now, it's only going to take a couple of years for people in that state to start seeing a reduced electricity bill. Another new one, 31 states have a financing program that's legislated to be allowed. In other words, states, pension plans, individual donors, companies can actually invest in bonds that homeowners and business owners can take a loan from and pay it back through their property tax every year. That can be sold with the house. So that you can do these more expensive retrogrades, putting in windows, more than just the insulation kinds of features. It's not instituted in all the 31 states. I actually looked up my former home in Oregon, and they've done a couple pilot programs, but they haven't really instituted this yet. So we need to demand it. What are the benefits of energy efficiency? Shout it out.
Less pollution.
Less pollution. We're going to reduce our carbon footprint.
Save money.
Save money, absolutely.
Jobs.
Jobs. Lots and lots of jobs, absolutely. So we have jobs putting in insulation, doing energy audits, providing training programs, putting up the various sorts of programs and program support. Actually, it has been shown that large-scale energy efficiency programs reduce wholesale electricity prices. Just brings them down. There's less demand. So that sweep study I showed you before from the Southwest can reduce up to 20% by 2020. What's the goal in the EPA rule? It's 30% by 2030. And therefore would retire 4,407 megawatts of coal. So it's going to improve our health. We'll have less particulates, less heat, less mercury pollution, and all the things that come from burning fossil fuels. So that's energy efficiency. Now, we all want clean energy as well, don't we? I mean, we want to turn the lights on. That's the big worry. And so one of the alternatives is wind. U.S. actually ranks second in the world for installed wind capacity. Most of us don't know that, which counts for about 4.5% of the total electricity demand as of 2013. The price of wind energy is now lower than coal. Okay? 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Texas, go get Texas. Texas is the leader with the most installed wind capacity, has fantastic wind, followed by California, Iowa, Illinois, Oregon, and Oklahoma. Now, the other point to take is that Iowa has been relying 27% of its electricity comes from wind because it's a lower per capita, but still, the lights didn't go out. They're a very good wind state, and 27% of their capacity comes from wind. How about solar? I love this graph. Okay, I didn't like this graph when it was a picture of CO2 emissions going up, but I like this graph when it's a picture of solar going up. Look at the steep curve there. This is, the graph is actually at the end of 2013. The end of the second quarter of 2014, we had 16,000 megawatts or 16 gigawatts of solar energy in this country. There's a new 1 gigawatt per quarter that's being installed in the United States. Half of that is in California. So they have instituted AB 32, they have policies in place that provide incentives to say we need clean energy. And the majority of states have renewable portfolio standards as well. So these policies help drive, as well as the reduction in costs, help increase the amount of clean energy that can and should be produced. How many workers? 143,000 workers in the solar industry in the United States. Quite a big number, displacing coal workers with training programs, miners who are getting black lung with training programs is absolutely essential to transition to a clean energy future. Solar is still more expensive than coal. Can't get around that. However, we do have incentives. So we have the federal solar investment tax credit that is still on the books and is planned to be on the books for a significant period of time. Many states still have net energy metering for both individual wind as well as for solar. There's a modified accelerated cost recovery system. Now what does that mean? That means if you have a building or a business and you put some major capital upgrade, normally you have to depreciate that over 15 to 28 years, depending on how it's defined. Well, this way it gets to be depreciated over 5 years. So there's a financial benefit to depreciating that sooner. Because that's about when you see the benefit, is after about 5 to 8 years. And the prices are going down. I paid about half this last year putting on solar panels in DC than I did 6 years ago in Oregon. I think it's also important we always think about solar as being an individual, homeowners kind of project, but in actuality, the utilities are on the bandwagon, especially when they're forced to be by policy. So if you look at this graph, you can see that the top part, the dark blue, is residential. The dark blue is non-residential, and the light blue is the utility. In other words, the utility is actually building solar farms, whether it's concentrated solar, solar thermal, or actually solar arrays to produce clean energy for their customers. Okay? It's really being driven in California, but in reality it's happening in many places. Now, do the lights go out? That sun goes down at night. Do the lights go out when the sun goes down? In actuality, no. The highest demand is during the day. The highest demand is with air conditioning. The highest demand in industrial and commercial is during the day. So Germany, the last 2 summers, were 50% on solar and wind. The lights did not go out. And in fact, they had a 3% reduction in CO2 over the last 3 years since 2011, in spite of closing 8 nuclear reactors. So we can have it both ways. Obviously, they have really created a lot of incentives to create the possibility to have that much solar, and that's what we need to do too. So what are we going to do about this? We don't listen to all this hot air, this disinformation, climate change denial. No, we're not. We're going to talk, we want a healthier air, we want healthier water, we want a clean energy future. We don't even, unfortunately in red states, we don't even have to talk about climate change. We can talk about having a clean, healthy energy future. So, what about the EPA carbon clean power plan? How many people know about this? How many people have already commented? Oh, fantastic. Good. So Gina McCarthy is my EPA hero. This is her signing the rule. You notice how big it is? Great big stack of papers there that everybody's been riffling through to try and write their comments. The goal is modest. It's not going to get us where we want to get. I can't say it will, because it won't. It's a 30% reduction by 2030 from 2005 levels. Okay? There are states way beyond that. Washington State, for example, is beyond that. However, it applies to every single state. Does it apply equally? No. And that may be its salvation because it's flexible. So there are guidelines and targets that were created for each state based on 4 potential calculations. The first one is that most coal plants can become more efficient. with some upgrades. And the maximum they can do is about 6%. So we can make burning coal a little bit more efficient so that it won't produce as much carbon per amount of electricity generated. The second is that they will count changing over to natural gas, because natural gas at the plant, when it's burned, produces half the carbon dioxide of coal at the plant. Now, we don't like natural gas. I'm sure that you guys don't like natural gas because methane is a stronger greenhouse gas. So hold that thought. It also says you can pick any of these if you can meet your target with them. You can pick energy efficiencies. You can pick energy efficiency, which is number 4, but you can also pick renewable resources, but they also include nuclear in that. But they used those and calculated the amount each state they felt reasonably achieve without too much outlay of money to get to a reduction. Now, we know that a lot of states are moving along that path and that there are other ways of doing this, like putting incentives in place. So putting incentives like AB 32 I mentioned in California, the Northeast Regional Electric Reduction, those are all possible as well under the plan to meet the goal of 30% reduction. As I said before, not every state has to meet that target. Some states like Washington have agreed to reduce much farther than 30%. They're the top one. Down there at the bottom is North Dakota, in case you can't read that. North Dakota has no policies in place for energy efficiency. Maine, however, is at the bottom as well because they have reduced significantly already through the RGGI program and don't have as much coal to reduce. And then, of course, this is the flip on the curve in terms of how much are they actually going to achieve, and we don't need to get into that. But the EPA rule costed what would it cost to do these kinds of changes? And they estimated about $100 billion to U.S. That the cost of the upgrades are $7 to $8 billion across the entire country. Climate disasters alone cost $100 billion to the United States in 2012. I think that's a pretty good price tag, personally. The benefits, of course, are the same benefits we've talked about. So reducing particulates, reducing pollution. Climate and health benefits are 55 to 93 billion by 2030 annually. Reduced premature deaths, asthma attacks, and of course, a reduction in our electricity bills. So, based on all that I told you, do we need natural gas to achieve these targets? No, we don't. We can use wind. We can use solar.
I just mentioned earlier that air conditioning was one of the biggest problems with producing usage. Yes, and then I mean, I think air conditioning is all operated off of natural gas.
A lot of it's operated off of electricity.
Oh.
Yeah. Heating is often natural gas.
Okay.
But air conditioning is with the electrical system. So, what would I like you all to do? I would like you to comment on the EPA rule. So all those people who didn't raise their hand, they can take the handout that talks about the health effects, turn it over on the back, go to PSR's website, read some more about the EPA rule, because this is just a real flyby, and we can talk about that some more, but put in some comments. Comments can include, we can do this, we should do more, we can do it with electrical energy efficiency, first and foremost, and clean energy second. We don't need new nuclear, and we don't need more natural gas plants. Simple. You've sent your comment in. Press send, and you're good to go. There are 1.5 million comments that have already come in. The goal is about 3 million, so I'd like to see us hit that goal. The extension, they have created an extension to December 1st. It was previously October 17th. But they did not extend when the rule had to come out. So the rule has to come out in its final form by next June. I'm not going to go over those. The second thing that you can do, and I'm sure all of you are involved in organizations on climate change. If you're a health professional, if you want to speak with a health voice, if you know of other health professionals or people who are concerned about health, create or join a PSR climate action team. Okay, so join up with PSR as an organization. We're going to be holding monthly webinars. Our first one is on October 1st, where we're going to talk about social media for all of us white-haired people who don't know about those kinds of things. You can learn about it, learn how to tweet yourself. But in reality, this is what attracts journalists and attracts stories and attracts younger people to our movement. Each webinar will provide either a new skill or new information, and teaching people how to advocate for this EPA rule. Because once the rule comes out, and even before the rule comes out, our state legislators need to hear from all of us that we want a state implementation plan, and we want it to look like what we just talked about. We want energy efficiency and clean renewables. Every state is going to be required to come up with a plan. If they don't, the federal government will hand them a plan. So if you get in to talk to people who are kind of against this, you can say, you know what, would you rather create your own plan here, or would you rather have the federal government tell you what the plan should be? Okay? So feel free to join us as we work on this plan and make it the best possible for every single state, because our legislators need to hear from us. So by telling stories about how climate change impacts your health, your legislators' health, your grandmother's health, your child's health, you will get the attention of the policymakers. You will get your letter to the editor in the paper. You'll get your opinion editorial in the paper. We have to tell stories about real impacts and real health issues so that people understand climate change is here and it's a health crisis. And the best thing is that we have solutions that will make us all healthier. So the main things I hope that people got out of today's talk were some of the main health impacts of climate change. Heat waves cause more deaths up until Hurricane Katrina. Air pollution is a serious impact, and extreme weather costs and health impacts last for years, if not decades. So Charity Hospital in Louisiana that took care of the low-income folks throughout the entire state was never rebuilt. That's a huge health impact for the state of Louisiana. There are many co-benefits of reducing our fossil fuel burning. We can talk about those instead of climate change when you're in a person's office who doesn't necessarily agree with us. And the action items. So, Bob is going to talk a bit as well about health care issues, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers.